Okay, so you have immediate validation rather than having to send maybe somebody out there or read a meter, go, whatever the process is for that. But some examples of computer visions are basically really image classification, object detection, object tracking, retrieving information. And even today, out of computer vision, now we have a derivative of Gen AI and computer vision called image chat. Image chat. Yeah, you can take that image and through a textual response, either non-asked or automated, can give you a textual response based on the information in that video. Utilizing Gen AI, we can pull it out and say at an intersection, it can say that say there was incident or a near miss of a pedestrian in a car at an intersection, the Gen AI could say, immediately put up a textual response based on information that's already in the data, again, collected, artificial intelligence, and say that, oh, this intersection has had 22% increase in accidents in the last year. Okay, based on the accident data, it may output that information. Or you may be able to just do a quick text to that image and say, oh, how many pedestrians crossed at this intersection over the weekend? Because you had an event. Well, immediately it could display that based on visual information. So it's important to understand that visual information is important and is a tool to collect and to collaborate amongst the cities, whether it's identifying something as a car or identifying it as a bicycle or a pedestrian. This video clip is in Matthews, actually. This weekend we did a demonstration of traffic, showing the traffic path, the number of cars in the intersection, the occupancy, any wrong-way drivers, what's the performance of that intersection. Because the problem is, a lot of times with an intersection, you can have someone sit there doing a clicker, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 clickers, east, north, whatever it may be, and eventually there's going to be some biasing in the data. My finger's tired. I'm not going to collect any more of it. So you don't have complete data. So maybe a video sensor that's not going to go to sleep or take lunch break can collect that information better for you in some cases, some not. So what are some of the use cases within a smart community? These are just some ideas, things that we work with, pretty much on a daily basis with different companies. Public spaces, arenas. What are we doing to provide a better, safer experience in an arena? Is it utilizing AI for gun detection? One of our AI vendors out there that are very popular for gun detection, utilizing AI technology. I believe it's Houston is putting that in actually very soon, or it's in the process right now. Other stadiums already have it in. Waterways, law enforcement correctional facilities, road networks, education facilities, car parks, bridges, tunnels, public transit. Can you use computer vision and AI on a bus? Sure. You can understand the traffic path of that bus, the speed of the bus, validate times to an application where they should be. Those are a couple different things. Warehouse logistics. How do you use AI to improve your traffic patterns around warehouse and logistic areas where you have maybe not the right road infrastructure for these large 48-foot trailers that will take shortcuts and go through different areas where they don't belong. Well, you need to know that data. Are we creating our own traffic patterns because of what we're trying to limit through traffic control? Another one in public transit might be people and facility safety. Rail lines, operational efficiency, traffic flow analysis, rolling stock predictive maintenance. Maintenance you can run based on the data that you're going to collect. How about airport? We do a lot of different things at the airport for passenger and people experience. TSA is doing a lot, believe it or not, from passenger experience and working, and Dell's working with them on a federated learning application to help provide better services for customers, okay? Believe it or not, security also has to be paired, with convenience, with the experience. Otherwise, you end up having chaos develop. People get upset. You get fights. Why? Because they're irritated, because the process didn't work. And we're all frustrated. We all don't want to go through the airport anyway. Critical infrastructure. What about our utility, power plants? What's happening? Shotgun detection. Is somebody trying to shoot out a transformer? Can we use AI to listen? Yes. Make clarification, bring in video sensors. But one of the most easy, I would say not the most, one of the easiest use cases that can be done has been a program that's been around since the 1990s over in Europe. And that's called Vision Zero. A lot of different cities across the United States are developing a Vision Zero program. And it's took about 10 years, 14 years for the US to kind of get behind this. And what Vision Zero strategy basically is, the goal is to eliminate all pedestrian deaths. There's approximately 12 deaths per 100,000 pedestrians in a city. And last year it went up 16%. Okay? So we have a challenge. We have a challenge because of technology has created a bigger challenge. And what is that? How many people do you see walking down the sidewalk with their eye on their phone and they walk into a pole, or they walk out in front of a car at an intersection? So can you use computer vision and AI to help eliminate that? We have a project with one of our partners, University of South Florida, who implemented AI at an intersection to look at that specific thing. If there are a lot of students heading towards the intersection, not paying attention, let's delay the signal. Let's create an audible talk down or a text to voice alert saying, hey, pay attention, and try to at least mitigate those pedestrian deaths. So it's important that we understand that it is getting worse because of speed limits. Sometimes it's traffic design. Sometimes it's simply as cutting a 4-lane highway down to maybe a 2-lane with a divider to allow pedestrians a safe zone as they're crossing. Okay, that may be a necessity, and there's some states that do that, but you don't know that if you're not tracking or sharing Vision Zero progress. Is there a collaborative dashboard within the triangle that can show everybody what improvements are happening, what is happening? Also, engaging the community, developing a framework to assess strategy effectiveness, measure and share equity-related priorities, update the plan to reflect emerging priorities and learnings. Okay? Data is not static. Data changes, results changes. Just look at what's happened to the world pre-pandemic. The data insights we had pre-pandemic are totally different than post-pandemic. We learned a lot because of the pandemic. We learned a lot about traffic patterns, believe it or not, because of the pandemic, okay? What was working and what wasn't working. So there is an important process because data insights change over time. So you have to evaluate. So some of the success that we've seen in some of the larger cities like Seattle DOT, a 4-mile corridor, they did some insights and traffic monitoring, and you see before and then after. They were able to decrease crashes by 16%, okay? Decreased total crashes 40%, 1,700 people injured during a 10-year period. Injury crashes were down 30%. Bike and pedestrian crashes down 15%. And that was purely by changing from a 4-lane to dual lanes or turn lane, but had a divider that allowed you to, more time for a pedestrian to get across, okay? One of the biggest challenges with intersections and pedestrian safety is the traffic signals are set based on experience, based on traffic flow, sometimes the speed, right? And then when a pedestrian crosses, they push that button or it automatically times and says, okay, walk. It's timed based on normal things. But what happens if somebody's crossing that intersection in a wheelchair? Would you think that they would need a little bit more time to cross and not get caught out in the last lane as the light changes? And that's unfortunately what happens a lot of times. So how can we use computer vision to look at somebody's in the crosswalk in a wheelchair, change the timing of the signals, and make it a little bit longer for that person? New York City traffic and bicycle lanes, they did an evaluation and said, if we just widened our bicycle lane a little bit, we put bicycle lanes in certain other areas that needed to be, could we cut bicycle or pedestrian fatalities or deaths? And they said, yes. Number of crashes per year down 49%. Okay? But the only way they knew how to do that was with data. And with the right data. GIGO. Okay? Can't have garbage in to get something positive out if it's not the right data. So garbage in, garbage out is an important consideration when you're doing it. One thing I noticed in the World Day of Remembrance for road traffic victims, November 19th, I know Raleigh's listed on that website. I guess University of North Carolina actually had a research was referenced this. Some of this, I believe, but 1,784 people killed in North Carolina roads in 2022. I mean, that's a lot. Okay? Not all pedestrians, but a certain amount of them, again, pretty consistent all across the United States, say probably increased 16%, so you have 14, 15% per 1,000, you know, that are, yeah, 12 deaths per 100,000. So insights are important. So how we collect those insights is important, is having the video sensor, computer vision, the analytic. Maybe it's parking enforcement. Maybe you've got people parking in an area that's a delivery zone certain days of time and other parking. How do you identify that? Well, AI can tell you that you've got an illegal vehicle parked in a truck zone, or you've got a truck parked in, you know, an area you don't want, or you have an abandoned vehicle on the right-hand side. You'll see that vehicle was abandoned. A person was supposed to be with that vehicle, otherwise they get ticketed. This happened to be an airport, but it could be almost anywhere. Taking information from drones. How do you get that information from drones, and how do you use that information? What are you collecting? How are you collecting it? What wireless connectivity, and what is the benefit? What's the outcome? The outcome in this case might be size of vehicles going down a particular road to make sure that nobody's, with a high tonnage vehicles going down a road that can't handle it. And on the right-hand side, illegal dumping. A lot of cities have problems with illegal dumping, and in some of them it costs them over $1 million a year just to clean up illegal dumping. If you're able to identify illegal dumping, and one of our partners was doing a demonstration in Arizona a couple weeks ago, and they were doing a traffic thing, and they happened to see an illegal dumping. And so the technician that was setting it up decided to record it, take it, send it to the city. City look at it and go, oh my gosh, wow. Got the license plate number of the vehicle, sent them a ticket, and then the next day they bought 2 mobile trailers that had the AI and everything built into it so they could move them around the city to help eliminate illegal dumping. So, I mean, the data's there. Homeless camps, do we have any of those in our areas today? Yeah, they come up in different where. You need how can you control them? How can you identify those areas that don't need it? How do you identify a fire that might be occurring or fire spreading? How do you map people, location, events? How do you use GIS mapping with AI? Privacy becomes an important part a lot of times. People say, no, I don't want my car, I don't want my license plate, I don't want it collected. Well, we've got to look at risk versus it. Or maybe we need to use a different technology. Maybe rather than computer vision, we use LiDAR. LiDAR is the same picture on the left as computer vision, on the right is LiDAR. Gives us a lot of similar information, but it's more anonymized, if that's what you want to do. So there are technologies out there to do that. Here's another example, DFW Toll Plaza with LiDAR, looking at vehicles. How long was a vehicle in that lane? How many were backed up? When do we open up more lanes? It all uses LiDAR, doesn't use a video sensor, uses a radio sensor. Third polling question. Pull up your phones there. All right, which outcomes are most important to you? Connectivity, safety, sustainability, cybersecurity, or not sure? And these are just 5 choices. I mean, there are hundreds of use cases and possibilities, but today we're talking about sustainability, we're talking about connectivity, we're talking about collaboration. So security is an important part of that, and collaboration. So everything is important. Where are you in that? Safety, yes. In most smart communities, smart spaces, safety is a lot of times the driving factor of that intelligent analytic solution. Why? Well, we already have cameras. The camera itself is a safety device. It's ones and zeros. So how do we collect that data to make safety? Whether it's speed control, whether it's pedestrian crossing, whether it's vandalism, whether it's theft, whatever it may be, that video sensor is there and can be shared relatively easy through community programs. Okay, I think we're about, so you see roughly they're all important. Just what is important to you? What is your outcome? So we'll close that one out. Got a couple more slides before I run out of time. But collaboration is one thing. And how do we collaborate with that data? How do we share that data? But also, how do we share that data without breaking the network? Especially if you're talking about video information. I mean, transmitting video over some networks, or 4G or 3G or 5G, can be problematic. So how do we do that? How do we create a federated learning application that will allow you to maybe train certain data at the edge, certain data at a centralized location, or federated allows us to do the training at the edge and only send back results to the central location, thereby not overpowering the network, not creating challenges with the data being exposed to the network. Only the metadata would be brought back. And then we analyze that. We make it available through maybe a data marketplace so that other cities have access to that data so that they can add it to their data. And now we can have a community-wide statistical analysis, a chart, have all of that up there. So it's important. But to get there, sometimes within data itself, there's a journey. But the first part, the journey is, what is the business need and what is your outcome? How you get there can be very complex, or it can be very simple, okay? But there are processes to get you from point A to point B and to make sure that it matches your outcome. So everything starts with that outcome and everything ends with that outcome, because you've got to measure the results. Were you successful with what you said was the outcome, or did it change midstream and you have a new outcome that was driven from the previous outcome? So before you start any major project, before you even get in deciding what company or what technology or what compute infrastructure, what server, what storage, what network, whatever, you've got to decide what is the outcome. What is that you desire to get done? If you don't know that, you're going to spin your wheels, and it'll be another 10 years before smart communities actually get smart. So here's the last thing. City Amarillo, utilizing the digital human. I'll give you an example.
I had my AI assistant actually generate a short summary of what digital human is. So I'm going to kick it off to Amy and let her do her intro and then pass it back to me for questions.
Hello, Mayor, Council, and residents of Amarillo. I am Amy, the AI assistant to the CIO of the City of Amarillo. Together, we work to seek out new technologies being used in business that can have an impact on the effectiveness of local government. Our goal is to safely implement these technologies to increase the efficiency of our city while greatly improving our service to the citizens. Navigating local government is often challenging for residents when they need access to information or services, particularly if that resident is not comfortable with technology or is new to our country and is still learning English. How much easier would it be if they could simply ask a question and get an answer? Digital humans enable new opportunities to greatly simplify the process for our residents. Let's start with a simple example of a resident needing to dispose of bulky trash.
Hello. Hola. Konnichiwa. I'm Sophie. It is great to meet you. What's your name?
Hi, Sophie. My name is Rich. I'm trying to find out if the city of Amarillo has a landfill.
Hello, Rich. Nice to meet you. Yes, the city of Amarillo does have a landfill. It is called the Amarillo Landfill, and it provides waste disposal services for residents and businesses in the area.
Is there anything they won't take?
While the Amarillo landfill accepts a wide range of waste materials, there are certain items that may not be accepted for disposal. These can include hazardous materials such as chemicals, paints, batteries, and medical waste. It's always best to check with the landfill directly or visit their website for a comprehensive list of acceptable and prohibited items.
Can you repeat that in Spanish?
Of course. Here's the translation in Spanish. Aunque el relleno sanitario de amarillo acepta una amplia gama de desechos, hay ciertos elementos que es posible que no sean aceptados para su disposición. Estos pueden incluir materiales peligrosos como productos químicos, pinturas, baterías y residuos médicos. Siempre es mejor consultar directamente con el relleno sanitario o visitar su sitio web para obtener una lista completa de los elementos.
Okay, so that was a Clara derivative developed by Dell there in the city of Amarillo. So this afternoon at 3:30 to 4, we're going to do some more demos of Clara. You'll be able to ask some questions. Maybe you want to know, what laptop is good for my student. What's a good machine for my work from home? What's, AI? What's, what do you want to ask? So we'll have some a little bit of input from you this afternoon from 3:30 to 4. So today we talked about AI in its sense that it's important to have the information. Gen AI is important, but you've got to have the right information for her to answer the questions and to provide you better insights. So this summit is to collaborate amongst yourselves to determine how data can be shared. What are you doing? What can be done together? If we do it together, can I share your data? What is the process of getting all that done? This collaboration, and that's what John has done with this summit, to be able to have it a continual process. This is not just a conference, but a summit. As John says, it doesn't end here, okay? It's got to continue if we're going to become smart. So thank you for the opportunity to present this information from my perspective. Very, limited in my knowledge. Things are changing. Used to be every year, used to be 8 years, but now every year, now every month, now every day, it seems like something's changing. So don't be afraid of it. Be ready for it. Understand the processes that you need to implement, what your governance policies are going to be, and what everything is needed for you to reach the outcome that you desire. Thank you very much.
A is track A. We stuck with that, right? That is the place to go for a 10:15 start if you're interested in kind of the strategy and tactics around data projects, around data governance, kind of like how do we do some of this stuff. Track B in room B is focused in the first session on digital equity, workforce training, those aspects. So take a break, visit some of the vendors, and 10:15 in those rooms. We'll go 10:15 to 11 before the next break. Thank you very much.
I'll get you. what you do to me. When you hold me in your arms so tight, you let me know everything's alright. I'm hooked on a feeling, I'm high on believing that you're in love with me. Lips as sweet as candy, its taste is on my mind. Girl, you got me thirsty for another cup of wine. Got a bug from you, girl, but I don't need no cure. I just stay a victim if I can for sure. All the good love when we're all alone. Keep it up, girl. Yeah, you turn me on. I'm hooked on a feeling, I'm high on believing that you're in love with me. All the good love when we're all alone. Keep it up, girl. Yeah, you turn me on. I'm hooked on a feeling, I'm high on believing that you're in love with me. I'm hooked on a feeling, and I'm high on believing that you're in love with me. I said I'm hooked on a feeling, and I'm high on believing that you're in love with me.
Looking out a dirty old window, down below the cars in the city go rushing by. I sit here alone and I wonder why. Friday night and everyone's moving. I can feel the heat, but it's soothing heading down. I search for the beat in this dirty town. Downtown, the young ones are going. Downtown, the young ones are growing. We're the kids in America. We're the
The breakout sessions will start soon. We'll try to get things moving along. So thank you, everyone.
Okay. We will get started very soon. Soon is not a time, but just corralling individuals and we will get started.
I don't know if this is on. All right. Good morning, everyone. You did choose the correct room. This is the room to be in this morning. I'm going to quickly turn this over to Kenisha Hinton, who is the Innovation Strategist for Wake County. What I'm very excited about are all these different representations in the room and for us to have this time to think about some of these larger issues and how we can collaborate. And digital equity is one of those issues in which all of us have goals, but we have far more progress to do. And so this, for me, is an exciting opportunity for us to hear about some of the programs and projects and latest ideas. And hopefully those are some things that you can take, or you might have recommendations for ways in which we can help elevate this work and take it to the next level. So I'll hand it over.
Thank you so much. I am excited to be in the room, and I'm excited that you all chose this room. Okay, so in 45 minutes, we're getting ready to solve some problems. Are you all ready to solve some problems? Gonna make this happen, okay? And we're gonna talk about how we're gonna improve digital access and opportunities for all. Now, if for some reason we're unable to solve it, like I said, I want you all to go forward, continue the work, figure out how we can make this happen and make sure that everyone has equal access to some of the digital tools that are needed to make this happen. Many of you probably selected this room because we share in the belief that we are in a region where we can achieve the goal of having an interconnected and smart communities and make Wake County and the surrounding areas, make Durham County, make Franklin County, all the areas that we touch, all of the areas that we impact, an extraordinary place to live, to work, to visit for everyone. So we're gonna do that by doing what? We're gonna dream bigger today, and we're gonna dream bigger together, all right? So we have a great panel in store for you today, so turn to your neighbor or say out loud to yourself, whichever you are more comfortable with, and say, you are in for a treat. See what I'm saying? For those in the back, I saw you. That's right. All right, so today, who do we have? We have Cari, DelMariani. What? DelMariani. I know how to say it. Yes. I was trying to read and look, and then we have Laura. We have up here Fogle. We have Emily Gangi and Patrick Mulhearn. And this group of individuals is going to do and talk and answer some questions independently together. Hopefully, maybe we'll have some opportunity to do some Q&A at the end. But they are going to tell you more about who they were. So when we were planning, we talked about I could stand up here and do the introductions and tell you how great they are and why I honor and respect each of them so much in the work that they are doing. But we're going to allow that to be a part of their introduction. So what we're going to do is they're going to, each of our panelists is going to introduce herself and share their passion regarding achieving digital equity and inclusion. And also, they're going to tell us how their organization ties into the Connected Triangle Plus vision and the Smart City movement. And so we're just going to get started with Patrick because he is closest, and then
I am
we're going to go
closest.
down.
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming out today. It's very nice to see so many friendly faces this early in the morning. My name is Patrick Mulhearn. I serve on the advisory board for DigitalBridge out of Wake Forest, and we are a career technical skills training program with a focus on computer skills. We do cybersecurity training, IT support certifications, teach computer programming in Linux and Python, project management software, Salesforce, and we serve predominantly communities of color, people experiencing poverty. What we have found, though, is that our aspirations are sometimes higher than our students' capabilities. So they come into us, say they want to learn Python, but they don't know how to send an email. And so we've been backfilling now, trying to find ways to provide digital literacy training at the very most basic fundamental levels to help our students be more successful. And we found that the communities that we serve, this need is pervasive. And so we've absolutely pivoted now to just providing really fundamental opportunities for people to learn how to participate in the digital economy.
Thank you so much, Patrick. What stands out to me about that is that you meet students where they are. I like how you said they want to learn something that is massive, but they don't know how to send an email. And so you start with where they are and you help them to get to where they want to go. Phenomenal. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Emily Gangi, like the river without the S. That's how I learned it when I met my husband. It's Italian. I am not. I'm from the mountains of North Carolina, and I'm a Durham resident now. I'm the policy director for the Division of Broadband and Digital Equity for the state of North Carolina. And we were created about 2 years ago by Governor Cooper, and the General Assembly appropriated us almost $1 billion, with a B, $1 billion of American Rescue Plan Act funds to begin working on Governor Cooper's plan to close the digital divide. Because we know that more than 1 million North Carolinians are on the wrong side of that divide and either don't have access to the internet at their homes or businesses, or they can't afford the service that is available, or they don't have the digital skills and devices that they need to be able to access the technology and participate in the digital economy. So most of that $1 billion is going toward infrastructure grants and programs to expand service to at least 98% of the households and businesses in North Carolina. And $50 million of that money is going to digital equity and literacy grants. One round of which is being announced today. I'll get a special sneak, and the people at the table did too. So we're announcing that applications are open today for the next round of $14 million. And nonprofits, local governments, higher education organizations, all kinds of folks are eligible to apply for those to improve digital equity in their communities, which could look like devices, skills, improving affordability. We're trying to keep it broad so that people can do what's most needed in their county and their community. So we've got that $1 billion. We're really grateful for that, and we're getting ready. We learned earlier this year that we're going to get $1.5 billion from the bipartisan infrastructure law through the U.S. Department of Commerce so that we can get to 100% of homes and businesses in North Carolina, because when you get to the harder to reach places, it gets even more expensive to get there. And so once we've achieved universal service, we can use any money that's remaining from that allocation toward digital equity activities as well. And so I have to make a couple announcements. One, our initial proposal for how we're going to spend that $1.5 billion was posted Monday for public comments, and I hope you'll all go to to ncbroadband.gov and take a look and give us comments about what you think about it. We also posted our broadband workforce plan. So in order to deploy this $2.5 billion in our state, it's going to create about 6,000 jobs. And we've got to make sure we have the people trained to do that work and build this critical infrastructure. So we've got a plan for how we're going to work with partners in our state to make that happen. So that's posted for public comment as well if you're interested, particularly interested in workforce. So those are the two things, the two pieces of homework I have for you. So you can tell I'm passionate about this work and making it happen, and I'm glad you chose to be in the room with us. And I'm going to stop because we're only supposed to talk for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Emily. I told you all you were in for a treat. So you already got inside information.
So good morning. I'm Laura Fogle, and I wear two hats. I'll tell you about both. I'll focus on one hat today. So I'm the director of the library at the College of Education at NC State University. So higher education institution, and I'm also the founder and current board chair of a nonprofit called Digital Durham. And I'll really focus today on my work with Digital Durham. We're a digital equity collaborative, and what that means is our mission is to bring together organizations and individuals throughout our community who are involved in digital inclusion work or who should be involved in digital inclusion work and just don't know it yet. So we have members who are nonprofits, we have members who are part of government organizations, we have members who are from private industry, and we have individuals. And so we are bringing together all of those different organizations and individuals to focus on closing the digital divide in Durham, right? So we already heard from Patrick and Emily about that includes connection to affordable broadband, to devices, to a working affordable device, a connection to digital literacy training, and really there's other aspects too that we could go into, but all of the different aspects of digital inclusion, you can see them being implemented one part or the other across many different organizations, right? So the library does digital literacy training. We have great nonprofits, one of which you'll hear from in just a minute, that helps provide devices. So how can, instead of each of those organizations working on their own, how can we help to bring them together to work collaboratively so that we can replicate best practices, that we can leverage each other's strengths, and really ultimately have a bigger impact on the community by working together in a coordinated way than if we're working sort of independently.
Thank you. Thank you, Laura.
Hello, everyone. My name is Cari DelMariani, and I'm the Director of Programs at Kramden Institute. And I'm very excited to be here on this wonderful panel with these wonderful folks. For the past 10 plus years, as the Director of Programs, I've worked to create digital inclusion programs here in the Triangle and across North Carolina. If you're not familiar with Kramden Institute, we are a Durham-based nonprofit with the mission to bridge the digital divide by providing technology, tools, and training. And how we do that is, number one, kind of like Laura was mentioning, we are a computer device refurbisher. So what we do is we collect computers from wherever we can find them. So that means from individuals like yourselves, who I know have like a laptop in a closet that you're not using, that's just sitting there, to municipal governments like Wake County, Durham County, to companies, big and small, who are refreshing their devices. We take those donations, refurbish them, and then distribute them back into our community. Since we started, we've awarded over 52,000 devices, so that's laptops and desktops. And in recent years, realizing that it's great to be able to distribute these devices, but they don't have as much impact without the education and training on how to use the device. And we also tried to promote that internet connectivity as well. So we've created, kind of like DigitalBridge, basic computer skills programming, where we teach our community members how to digital skills and then provide them with a device upon completion. So we've done that here locally, but also with a lot of partners across the state.
Thank you. Each one of these individuals have such a rich addition to this work, and so I'm excited to hear more from each of you. We're going to start out with our next question with Emily, and then we'll kind of go and follow. What do you see as the biggest obstacles facing our communities as we are trying to achieve these goals?
North Carolina was the first state in the nation to create an Office of Digital Equity and Literacy at the state level, and we did that 2 years ago. And I'm with the division, and within the division there's the Office of Digital Equity and Literacy and the Broadband Infrastructure Office. And we did that because we think that the digital equity and literacy piece is just as important as the infrastructure piece, and can sometimes get lost in the conversation because we need to focus a lot on the infrastructure and making sure people have access, but just as important is affordability. And we did listening sessions around the state in the spring in multiple counties and in different regions of the state. And the top 3 things we heard from folks about what the key challenges were in their community, one was the infrastructure, the access to the technology, and then right there along with it was affordability and being able to afford the service that is available to them or to afford the device that they need to connect. And then the third piece was digital skills and knowing how to use it. And so the people at this table are representing all those challenges. But I want to especially talk to you today about affordability because that's heavy on my mind. There's a federal benefit program called the Affordable Connectivity Program that provides a $30 a month subsidy for low-income households who qualify. And we know that more than 1 million households in North Carolina, the estimates are between 1.3 and 1.7 households in North Carolina qualify for that benefit. So one of the key objectives of our Office of Digital Equity and our whole division has been educating residents in North Carolina to let them know that that benefit is available and that they qualify and how to enroll. So right now we've got about 850,000 households enrolled in that program who are on the internet, have access to the internet at home, and are getting the benefit of that $30 a month subsidy. It also provides a rebate toward the purchase of a device as well, I should mention. The estimates are that the federal source of funding for that program is going to run out of money sometime in the spring of 2024 if Congress doesn't act to appropriate more funding to that program. So we've been working with a lot of our stakeholders and collaborators. Governor Cooper has been working on a letter with other governors. As of yesterday, I think we were at 21 governors who'd signed on, both Republicans and Democrats, urging Congress to appropriate more funding to the Affordable Connectivity Program. So anything that you can do to make sure that Congress takes action to keep that going so that those 850,000 households in North Carolina are still able to afford the internet service that they have, and that we can keep getting to that 1.3 to 1.7 million total who need that benefit, that I would encourage you to do that.
Thank you. Yes, Laura.
I'll pick up right where you left off there. I failed to mention when I was talking about Digital Durham that we're an affiliate of NDIA, which is the National Digital Inclusion Alliance. Thank you. And NDIA has some materials posted on their website, like a template letter that you can use to send to our federal representatives. So please look into those resources that are available there to help us raise our voices about the fact that ACP is making a huge impact in our communities, and we don't want it to go away. The other challenge that I want to talk about is this new challenge, right? The speaker this morning was talking about AI, and it's a topic that I'm very interested in, and it connects to my evolving ideas about digital inclusion and the digital divide. So I've been involved in this work for about 8 years now. So I'm actually a relative newcomer. And I initially thought that if we had enough money, right, we could just solve the digital divide in Durham. If we could get the funding we needed, we could just solve it and it would be done, check it off. But I've realized that as technology advances, we continue to have technology advance, people continue to get left behind, right? The device that people had 5 years ago or 10 years ago, right, is not an adequate device today because the things that we're expecting to do with our devices are different. So the example of the digital human who's helping people navigate their municipality and access services, right? I'm like, oh, that's so exciting. And then the other side of my brain is like, yeah, but what about all those people who are just accessing it on their cell phone? Can they do that AI thing on their cell phone with their data plan? Maybe not. So I think that's one of the obstacles is how we continue to think about evolving, emerging technologies and how we can get ahead of this equity issue and really break down some of the barriers before they get too far out in front of us so that everybody has equitable access to even the emerging technologies. As I think about the teachers that we're preparing in the College of Education, like I'm telling them about artificial intelligence and the tools that they can use, but I'm also thinking about the students in their classroom who won't have access to it. And so when they graduate from high school and they want to enter the workforce, they're not going to have had experiences potentially with artificial intelligence and how you design a good prompt, how you prompt engineer for AI tools. Every student, every child in North Carolina deserves to have a quality education that includes, right, experiences with digital tools that prepare them for the workforce. And we can't get there if they don't have equitable access to those technology tools at home and at school.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And Cari, would you like to address?
Yeah, I mean, I will kind of piggyback off of all of that, both Emily and Laura. You know, the obstacles that we see in our work is all of those things, not having the access to that affordable device. And then one thing that hasn't been addressed yet, because I am so focused on devices, is tech support. And, you know, it's great to put that device into somebody's hand, but I'm sure everybody in this room has had a tech support issue before. And a lot of us, except for this gentleman right here. And, you know, a lot of us probably just take for granted that we can solve those issues with our technology. But for a lot of people, that isn't a reality. I see people in our office every day that are coming to us for tech support, which, you know, we do provide affordable tech support to our clients, who are, you know, relying on their device for their education, for their job. And when it breaks down and they don't have the funds to go to Best Buy or go to, you know, they are lost, and that is hurting them and just creating, you know, more and more inequities. So that's one thing that hasn't been said yet that I did just want to mention, that is really an important aspect.
Thank you. Thank you for adding that. Patrick, what do you have to add?
Yeah, so we're talking about connected communities, smart cities, smart communities. Policymakers love to talk about these sorts of things. How do we design our cities and communities to be more interconnected, leveraging all the technologies that are available to us? How can you do better open government by making your government facilities more available online? All of these ideas assume a baseline level of understanding of how the internet works, and also that you have a device capable of connecting to the internet. And there are maps in the state's 5-year plan that show all the communities in the state where people predominantly have cell phones for connecting to the internet. I think one piece, though, that is, and we've mentioned it numerous times already this morning, but it tends to fall to the wayside because I think it's hard to do, is digital literacy. How do people know how to connect to the internet? And there are funds coming down to support our governments in distributing this sort of understanding to the communities that we live in. But I don't believe that there's enough focus on it. And so I think that's the primary impediment to our achieving a smart cities focus, is that we're leaving a lot of people behind, and we're not doing now, we're not in the future, we're not planning enough for how we're going to rectify this as we go forward. And the consequence is we're going to leave people behind. And if we want to have vibrant communities, we want to have a thriving economy, we have all of the sort of infrastructure necessary for that in the state of North Carolina. So we really should be focusing on our efforts to make sure that everyone is included in this new technology-driven economy that we live in.
Thank you so much for that. And one of the things that you talked about, Patrick, was this gap and this widening gap, and it kind of takes us into our next question. And Cari, I would like for you to start with the answer for this next question. And as we think about the Connected Triangle Plus vision, it focuses more than just on education. It talks about working individuals. It talks about individuals that are living and just how they're living, workforce development, all of those different components. And COVID did a lot of things. And we won't talk about all of the things that they did, but one thing it did was it highlighted that gap. It highlighted that digital equity and inclusion gap in a very, very different way. So the question is, how does digital equity and inclusion affect workforce development and the economics of the communities that we are all serving?
Yeah, and I'll start by a stat that we've been using a lot this year to explain this need for digital skills. I think it was the National Skills Coalition came out with a report earlier this year that said that 92% of all jobs across sectors require digital skills. And I believe about a third of workers don't have those foundational skills. So when we read that, I mean, that is hugely telling, and we see that in our work every day. And, you know, I often tell the story. We were working with Durham Housing Authority to do a digital skills class and provide devices, and we were doing a graduation. I think we had like five residents graduating, receiving certificates in basic computer skills. And one of the graduates was so just thankful, and she just broke down in tears, saying that that was really the first time she had ever, you know, received any kind of certificate and accomplished anything in an academic setting or graduated. And, you know, that was just really impactful, I think, for myself and our staff to see that impact and realize that how do you expect someone to get out of their current situation if they don't have those skills and they're not supported. And so whenever we're trying to create our program, we're really trying to look at it holistically. It's not just giving the skills and giving the device, but really supporting them and looking at our partners like Digital Durham and partners across our community to support our clients and our residents.
Thank you. Patrick?
So I think that fundamentally, excuse me, our workforce development efforts after COVID, we've seen now a migration out of the office, right? And although some companies are trying to force people back into the office, it's in some kind of hybrid scenario. So fundamentally, people need to be able to function in an online environment. that requires basic skills for how to connect, basic devices for connectivity. So even to participate in the job market, to be eligible for remote work, which is pretty sweet, you have to have some basic skills that I think a lot of people lack. Even just applying for jobs, though, you have to be able to navigate the internet. You need to be able to understand how to work with online forms. Your housing security, your bank accounts, just setting up your electricity account to get power to your house all require just these basic digital skills that some people don't have. And so what we're talking about then is this new area of opportunity for all of us to do better in our careers and to have better work-life balance. And that lifestyle is only available to those of us who know how to participate in an online environment. So again, we're leaving out so many people, and they're not able to access the opportunities that the rest of us enjoy. And I think at a fundamental level, don't even realize what privilege we have, that this isn't something that we have to worry about. We don't have to worry about that our only access to the internet is through our phone, or that this child at home is trying to figure out how to navigate Google Classroom and their parents don't know how to work the computer. And so that child's opportunities in the digital economy will also be affected. It's pervasive and comprehensive. And again, I think that not enough attention is being directed to this very fundamental issue.
Thank you. Laura, can you respond?
So I think, Patrick, I want to pick up on the words you said, comprehensive, and the fact that workforce development is something that that many organizations can have a piece of contributing to the development of workforce skills in our community. And so we shouldn't be thinking just, right, well, that's the community college does that, right? The Workforce Development Board in my community does that, right? That it's really, there are opportunities for all of us to work together with specific communities, because one of the things that I've learned about digital inclusion work, which seems obvious, but when you actually see it play out in programming, it's a little startling, is that people aren't going to participate in your program, even if it's a quality program, if they don't trust you and they don't have some kind of connection or relationship with your organization. So for example, if you want to reach the refugee community in Durham, then there are nonprofits who work every day with people who are refugees in Durham. So that's where we need to bring the digital literacy training and the access to devices and talk to them about ACP. Like, back to what we were saying sort of at the beginning of meet people where they are, but literally meet people with the organizations that they're already connected with, so that, again, this needs to be a collaborative effort, and there's not one group who's sort of responsible for this, but we all work together.
Thank you. Emily?
I think I want to start with saying, I want to make sure, I know we're focused on the triangle today, but the triangle does include some rural areas. I want to make sure everybody doesn't think this is just a rural issue. This is a rural, urban, suburban, whatever planning designation you want to use issue. When we look at our mapping and our data, the digital divide is affecting people in every county in our state. So I just want to make sure everybody sees it in that way. But we do know that it's particularly hard in rural communities, or not particularly, but it looks different in different places. So I staffed the state's comprehensive economic development plan in 2019, just before the pandemic. And we did a lot of research, and we did listening sessions all around the state for that too. Can you tell I like getting out and talking to people? The two things we heard in every region of the state, whether it was rural or urban, suburban, the two things we heard then were broadband internet access and affordability, and affordable housing, which we all know is a big issue in the triangle too. So it's in the state's economic development plan, this digital divide and closing this digital divide. And it is an issue for workforce development because most jobs require that you apply online now. And if you don't have access to the internet or don't have a device or don't have the skills to know how to do that, it's impacting your ability to get a job. It's also impacting your ability to train for a job because so much of our education and training is provided online now. And so it's keeping people from getting the skills they need to earn a higher wage and to be able to afford to live in better communities that are better connected. So the last thing I want to mention is just how it looks different in different places. So we also have data that Roberto Gallardo is one of my heroes who's at Purdue University, and he's done really interesting work around digital equity and planning, and he's done research that shows that in communities, rural or urban, that have higher levels of internet connectivity and adoption, so not just the access, but where people are adopting and subscribing to the internet, they have higher levels of economic prosperity as well. So it's really key to workforce development and economic prosperity that everybody has access, everybody can afford it, and everybody has the skills and devices they need to use it.
Thank you so much. Okay, so in the interest of time, we have just one more question. And I skipped you last time, Laura, because I wanted to start this question with you. Passion. It's not often that everyone gets to be able to work in their passion. But as a passionate community member around individuals having equitable digital access, being included as a community member, you began the work, you spearheaded, you lead Digital Durham, which has become a benchmark for so many other organizations and community engagement and work. So, and this question will be for everyone to respond, but I wanted to specifically start with Laura. How can a passionate community member, including individuals who are here to do the work, who want to join and make these kind of things happen, how can they get involved in achieving digital equity and inclusion work, and what is your call to action?
I'm ready to just shout it out. So I guess first I will say that we are so lucky in North Carolina to have strong leadership at the state level. When I go to national conferences about digital inclusion, people literally come up to me and say, "You're so lucky to live in North Carolina because y'all are way ahead of everybody else." And one of the big reasons why we are ahead is because we've had great leadership at the state level. So I encourage people to lean on that leadership that we have, right? Look at what is available from the Division of State Broadband Office, if I didn't say that quite right, but you get it. Right? Look at the resources that are available there. They can support you and are willing to support your community and want to support your community. There are grants, right? The first round of grants that is already being implemented are happening probably in your communities right now. So I think that was the biggest thing that's been able to help Digital Durham be as successful as we've been, is that we didn't try to do it ourselves. We reached out to partners. We found other like-minded individuals, other people who were passionate and connected to that passion to see what we could do together, right? It's not something that one person can solve. You need to find your people in your community, and they are there. Find them and come together. So I would say you should, if you live in Durham, come join us. We want you to be part of our collaborative. We're so fortunate to have great members. Our City of Durham representative is here with us today. Kramden, we have many other great members. If you don't live in Durham, form a collaborative in your community and bring those people together. And also, as I mentioned earlier, look at those resources that are available from NDIA that can support you, as well as the resources that are available at the state level to support you. So you're not alone.
Awesome. Thank you.
And I'll just say, after that, that a lot of communities like Durham are doing digital equity planning too. I know that Wake County's doing that as well. So that's a huge thing that I think, you know, when we were creating the Durham Digital Equity Plan, we were looking for supportive community members, you know, from all different sectors. And that's something that if there's already a plan created, read the plan, see how you can get involved in implementing the plan. So that's definitely one thing. You know, hopefully we'll get to the point where we have a digital equity plan statewide and then one in each county. That is the goal. So that's one thing. And then on a much simpler level, I will speak to, about Kramden Institute. We are always looking for support. So if you are local, especially local to Durham, we're always looking for volunteers to come to get involved, geeks and non-geeks. We will train you on how to refurbish a computer. It's really fun. It is fun. It is fun. Or tear apart a computer. So if you're just like angry, you know, I mean, you haven't had tech support issues, but for the rest of you, you know, if you want to just come and just get your anger out on those devices, we can help you there. And I will say, always advocating for devices. We have so many devices in our community. Companies that, you know, thankfully we get some of them, but we know that so many of the devices that are in our community end up outside of our community, going to for-profit refurbishers and then go who knows where. And our goal is really to keep them in our communities. So anything that anybody can do to advocate for that is always appreciated.
Tell them how many counties can access your services in Durham.
Yes, yes. So we are, clients across North Carolina can receive a computer from our organization. We created a pretty elaborate kind of train the trainer program. So we partner with communities, again, a lot of public housing communities all across North Carolina. We train individuals who either are residents in public housing or work in that public housing community in the triangle, and then send them back into their community. Laura was mentioning the trust factor, where they have that trust already established in their community, and they deliver our curriculum and our computers throughout there, and we pay them a stipend to do that. So that's one of the ways that Kramden is able to kind of distribute our programming across the state. Thank you, Emily.
Awesome. And so if we can quickly hear from Patrick and then Emily, and then I'll have 2 words to say.
Okay, very quickly, I'll reiterate a lot of what's already been said. Go to the NCDIT website, look for the Community Digital Inclusion Plan template, and look it over. It provides a holistic strategy for providing digital inclusion efforts wherever you are. Also echo that we need more networks. So whatever organization you work in, look for ways to help some of us small outfits interconnect with each other to help share best practices and whatever resources we might have. The other piece is there's a lot of money coming right now, but it is project funding. Okay, so one-time funding. We need programmatic support for digital navigators in every organization that touches any of the communities covered by the Digital Equity Act, so that the covered populations. Every community-based organization that works with these individuals, families, communities, needs to have a digital navigator embedded in the organization. So whatever we can do to make sure that whatever agencies you represent have digital navigators, community-based organizations you work with have digital navigators, they should be at every level that touches every community that we serve.
Bat and cleanup. Number 1, you can put together a device drive. I've been to Kramden. I've seen they use Department of Defense procedures to make sure they wipe everybody's information. It's completely safe to donate your stuff to them. So you can put together a device drive to donate either personal equipment of people in your neighborhood or your employer. I'm still working on getting the state of North Carolina to do a better job surplusing computers to device refurbishers, but it might be easier in your organization that's not a state agent, with state bureaucracy. Number two, we made a grant to the Institute for Emerging Issues at NC State University to help all 100 counties in North Carolina do a local digital inclusion plan. They have a map on their site so you can see where your county's at, if it's already got one or if it's in progress, if you're interested in getting involved with that effort, or if your county's not working on it yet, you could help them get started. And number three, check out the grants that we've mentioned and the plans that are posted for public comment. We really do want to hear from you and get your ideas. There's one more I'm going to mention. I know it sounds like we do a lot of planning, but when you got $2 billion, you really got to plan how you're going to spend it. So there's a digital equity plan that will be posted December 1st for public comments, and the folks at this table have been really important in providing input for that plan. That will help us get ready to get some more federal money in 2024 for digital equity capacity. We're hoping to get around $30 million from the federal government for that. So take a look at that one when it comes out December 1st as well and give us feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So I would like to say to Cari DelMariani, to Lori Fogle, to Emily Gangi, to Patrick Mulhearn, thank you. I think we have the best panel. We have a great representation of community involvement, our state leadership, and individuals that are doing the work. Thank you for your time and being in here and teaching us how to do it in 45 minutes. We appreciate you.
So we have an amazing chocolatier, local chocolatier. So if you have not been to Videri Chocolate, they are near here. But we have a little treat for our panelists. Really want to thank them for their time. And like they said, they want to hear from you about their plans. This conference also wants to hear from you. So don't forget there's a survey where we have a question for you because we want to get, this is collaborative, this is interactive. So the link is on the website. Don't forget to fill that out. You've got a break for about 15 minutes, and then we'll stay in both the two rooms. So we'll stay as the B, and then A will be in the next room. But let's give another round of applause for our panelists.
session began with everything going to plan. Sometimes I hear the fear in your voice, and then I think of the poisonous words imagined. The only way that we can connect is when we're looking back with reflective mood. But then I remember you too. It gets
right, we'll welcome everybody to come on in and take a seat. All right, we want to really thank you for joining us today. This is the panel on sustainability, and if you are at all familiar with any of the great work that is going around in the Triangle, we are leaders in this sphere. I do also encourage you, the city of Raleigh has a really interesting interactive heat mapping tool that you can actually move around like they do on some of those voting map things, so I encourage you to check that out. I'm Heather McDougall. I'm the head of the Office of Strategy and Innovation, and we're just really excited for you to be here today and to learn from you, learn with you. So a couple just reminders for you. Don't forget there is a survey. We have a couple questions that, again, we want to hear not only from these experts and these amazing panelists, but we want to hear from you too. So don't forget to fill that out. We really want to thank the sponsor for this, Duke Energy. And I wanted to just open this up and turn it over to Vakesia Graves and let her take over this wonderful panel. So thank you.
Hello. They've given me a microphone. It's going to be fun. Thank you all so much for joining our breakout. This is sharing and learning from smart connected projects. I'm going to take a moment first for you to take in both the panel and our pictures and see what you think might be the same. Ladies representing in the house. This is unusual. Yes, that deserves it. We like to call that out, gents, because in our lines of business, it is not necessarily the norm that all four of us would be in the same room at the same time, speaking on the same topics. So before we go any further, I'd like to have our panelists introduce themselves, starting with Nicole. Yeah, we didn't get training on how to...
Training. Okay, can you hear me? Hi, I'm Nicole Smith. I am a managing partner in Verizon's Premier Enterprise segment, so I support some of our largest enterprise customers, including Duke Energy.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? All right, I'm Megan Anderson. I head up sustainability for the city of Raleigh. So we have a large community-wide climate action plan that we're working on, and I'll be happy to tell you a little bit more about that.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Deb Wojcik, and I have the pleasure and honor of serving as the Executive Director of the Research Triangle Clean Tech Cluster. We bring together industry, academia, and government to advance clean tech innovation and adoption across the state.
And I am your host, Vakesia Graves. I am with Duke Energy, Managing Director of Connected Communities, which is the vaguest title I have ever had in the 23 years that I have been with the company. Connected Communities consists of outdoor lighting, our digital infrastructure organization, and smart cities. And digital infrastructure is macro wireless, of which Verizon is one of our customers. And I also have the wonderful group represented here today. The solutions development team, please raise your hands because you guys are awesome. And in solutions development, we literally do that. We develop all of the solutions that our customers, we're looking for the problem that we're trying to solve for our customers. And that goes through this very fine organization. So not a lot of work for me at all. So I want to start with the summit's statement. Envision the connected triangle, a region where interconnected smart communities work together to create an extraordinary place to live, work, and visit for everyone. The triangle has set the standard in smart technology and connectivity, and now it is time to dream bigger. So I want to remind our panelists of that statement as I dive into the first question. And we'll just start in order. Sorry, Nicole. How does your work tie into this vision? And if you would, provide an example of a transportation project that might also work in the triangle.
Thank you, Vakesia. So the way that Verizon's work ties into the vision is that we are enabling our 5G deployment, densification of 5G in order to create a smarter, more connected community. So we're working at the federal, state, and local level to deploy this technology that's ultimately going to help all of our citizens be safer, be more connected, have a more enjoyable experience when they're on the roads. And so one of the projects that comes to mind when we talk about the larger vision is that we're working with a few municipalities, but specifically with the Arizona DOT recently. We are piloting a technology called Vehicle to Everything and Infrastructure to Everything, where as it stands today, your vehicles really are limited by their onboard sensors, which only have line of sight visibility. So we need to get beyond that line of sight and penetrate further into our infrastructure so that a vehicle can actually predict when a pedestrian is jaywalking a mile ahead of you. You're going at 60 miles per hour, and your vehicle can now have a heads-up display or just like the onboard display that's going to tell you that, hey, you need to slow down, or actually have the vehicle slow itself down. So it creates a safer environment, and it also can help create a better traffic flow, which we think is extremely important to any community and to the happiness of our citizens, right? Nothing is more frustrating than being stopped at every red light. So this kind of technology can actually enable you to hit more green lights via a technology where you can predict what speed you should go in order to hit more green lights.
I like that.
Right? So, and then we can do things like give priority to emergency vehicles or give priority to public transit so that it's a better experience, it's better traffic flow for everybody. Vehicles become sensors, and the city is able to get that data back and make better decisions with it. So this is exciting technology. Yeah, right. And so it's definitely something that we are working to develop and deploy. And I'm pretty excited about it.
I'm having Back to the Future visions, which is really an old movie, but it had those thoughts. That is pretty cool. We got to talk more about that later. Megan, your response.
Yes. So I'll first just share a little bit about our climate action plan. Hopefully I know a lot of you in the room, so a lot of you might know about it already, but Raleigh came together with hundreds of folks from across the community to put together a big community-wide climate action plan. We're really proud of it. It was one of the first in the country to really embed not only greenhouse gas reduction, but also equity and building community resilience to the impacts of climate change. And so really when we think of sustainability and we think of connectivity, everything does connect, and even if you're thinking about a project that you wouldn't think connected to transportation, it does. So one thing that comes to mind is we've come together, one example where we've used data to map urban heat that Heather mentioned with Durham and Raleigh, and we've been able to build a ton of mitigation programs out of that. So we were able to look at and really come together with hundreds of people. Again, we were the biggest program they've ever seen in the country because so many people were excited to kind of help us do this data mapping. And so lots of excitement from the community to help us get that work done. And really we're looking at where is not cooling down, which can be really dangerous for the environment, for people over time. And so how do we change that? And so when we think of mitigation strategies, things like green spaces, things like this really cool titanium dioxide pavement technology that we used on the streets that basically really reduce heat and pollution. Things like even solar panels shading certain kind of spaces. There's all sorts of things you can do. And so we're thinking about how that connects to just quality of life for people as well. So I'll also touch on a few other things just because transportation is one of the biggest areas of greenhouse gas reduction and impact that we need to see. But I think the important thing is we always want to tie that to resilience and equity and climate impacts and make sure that those that are most vulnerable to climate change, we're really thinking about and we're bringing everybody up together. So a couple other things that are exciting that also touch on transportation. Again, there's everything in the kitchen sink that we're working on. We're doing an e-bike rebate program we're working on now. It'll be actually, I think, as far as we know, the largest subsidy in the country for low to middle income at $1,500 and then $500 for others. It's going to be kind of small getting started as a pilot, so we know everybody's really excited about it, but thinking about how to get people out of their cars, and then and then even from an accessibility perspective, if folks don't have access to a car, can you have an access to an e-bike that can help you get around further as well? We have a ton going on with transportation electrification, so we really think about transportation electrification as a way to, first, we want to get people out of their cars, but we're very car heavy, and if we are car heavy, how do we make sure those are the cleanest possible? So we're working on our own fleet. So over the course of 10 years, we're working on how do we transform our own fleet. We have over 4,600 rolling vehicles, 2,500 on the road fleet. That's a really big fleet. We're converting what we can now, and then also thinking about clean alternative fuels for those other vehicles that just aren't there just yet for the technology. And when you think about that, we don't want to be in the business of owning all the stations in the community as well, but we want to make sure that this rolls out accessibly, so clean transportation is an option for everybody in the community. So we're thinking about those public-private partnerships. We did an EV mapping tool that we've got some folks in the audience that helped build that for us, where we're thinking about that from the criteria of equity and making sure folks that's accessible. So we're working on codes and ordinances with that, where we're going to require, hopefully, multifamily and other places where people rent and may not have control over, over 90% of charging happens at home. So let's make sure people that rent, which is a majority of Raleigh, it's getting to that point, have access to those kind of things too. So one last example I'll mention is, some of you may have known that we just broke ground on our bus rapid transit. We're the first in North Carolina to roll this out, and we just had our groundbreaking this week. And that's going to really, really, really help improve access to transportation across the community. And also just thinking about those corridors, what the opportunities are for innovation, data collection, accessibility in other ways for the community as well. One really, really cool thing about the BRT is we have electric buses that we're looking at, and also a lot of those buses are going to be fueled through our wastewater. So we have a Neuse River recovery project, and over the course of the next several years, we're going to be capturing all of our wastewater, turning that into renewable compressed natural gas, and then putting that back in our bus system. This has been a moonshot project we've been working on for a really long time, on top of the moonshot to get BRT up and running. So just think about that for a second. I always like to just pause and say, what you're flushing down the toilet is going to actually fuel our buses. How cool is that? So just really cool, innovative stuff happening, and think about all those opportunities to include data and tracking to make our community a better place, which really is what smart cities and being connected is.
Wow, that was a lot. It was interesting. There'll be a test later. So I hope you were taking notes. You had me at titanium oxide in the sidewalks. I stopped thinking right there. That is amazing. You are doing so much great work. Deb, good luck following that.
I was going to say, I feel like I should do the mic drop for her. How do you follow that? I mean, these women are doing the work on the ground, making it happen. That's amazing. As I said, I work for a nonprofit, and my job is to understand what I can and amplify this amazing work they're doing. So when we talk about dreaming bigger and connectivity, I get to wear two hats with this. I said I get the pleasure of working for RTCC. I also have to kind of bring to the table that I am a research nerd by background, and connectivity was what I studied. I did network analysis, looking at how organizations work together to advance their goals, how individuals communicate to make important decisions and innovate. So this is at the sweet spot. This is my Venn diagram kind of conversation. So I have a couple of different comments. One is, this EV infrastructure is an area that really has an opportunity to hit on our three main focal areas right now: clean energy, clean transportation, and smart utility technologies, right? We want to do it more efficiently, we want to do it equitably, and we want to do it in a way that provides a sustainable path towards a sustainable future for our communities. So we really focus on making sure there are economic benefits equitably distributed and enjoyed in a way that helps us preserve what makes North Carolina great in terms of our environment and our citizenry. And so when we think about things like the BRT, Megan, I didn't tell you this ahead of time, but I looked at that and I was like, yes, first in North Carolina. And that sets a boundary, right? Because what we really need is this regional type solution. I use the example of our river basins. We have 17 river basins here in North Carolina. Those do not follow our municipal boundaries. Those aren't by county. Those are the way that water flows. And what we need to do if we're going to be truly smart into the future, if we can dream bigger, is to think through how do we break down those barriers. Some of that old research stuff was around governance. How do we create regional governance structures through trust, through mutual information sharing, through data accessibility that allows us to advance? And transportation is a great way of doing that because we know there's easy flows. We know that people are not going to stop at the boundary, right? And so we immediately need to access that type of thinking and structure in order to advance us. We have a lot. Fleet electrification is another piece, right? We have a system of EV infrastructure. We also have amazing investment. There's a lot of talk right now. The NNO just put out, North Carolina is the epicenter of clean energy. I think it should also talk about clean transportation in that. I think the niche that we have is around this clean transportation, efficiency, being able to decarbonize our most greenhouse gas producing sector. And so thinking about all of that, thinking about how we might also talk about autonomy in that picture. How do we think about these things that our keynote we're talking about in terms of how we process the data in a way that allows us to learn and adaptively manage. So one of the things I'll just put on that is we're going to need to adaptively manage this as we create systems that lead us forward. I think learning together today and learning together iteratively in the future in a way that creates the communication flows that we'll need to carry us forward.
Wonderful, wonderful. The passion is amazing. I will speak briefly from Duke Energy's perspective. There are, contrary to a lot of firm beliefs, there are those of us within the utility organization who think beyond just the electron. There are those of us who actually do care about using the expertise that we have from an electric utility standpoint to help customers to solve a problem. So we do leverage our expertise, and we are in the EV space now, but we want to do it from a helpful perspective. Forget what you hear and see externally. We do have some really strong, passionate folks within the utility who want to help our customers. And Nicole and I were talking, we're enablers. You need the power, you need the connectivity, and we are here to help. So that's my little spiel on behalf of our company. And I'm gonna be a horrible moderator. Someone check me on time because I'm just talking, and so are they. All right, next question. Now that we've dreamt big, we're talking about the big dreams. Let's talk about the hard stuff. What do you see as the potential obstacles in achieving your vision? Let's start with Megan.
All right. So, I always say, I think with this work, the biggest thing is everything is good and important work, and you want to do it all. And how do you start, right? And how do you not get overwhelmed and there's just not enough time in the day? So I think just always for me, I'm really personally and professionally passionate about equity work. And so I think really, really, really always centering that. I wouldn't call that an obstacle. I'd call that an opportunity, but just want to say it's hard. It's really hard. You need data, but that's not good enough. That's just a start to kind of say, what kind of outcomes are we seeing in the community? Where can we start? And then we really need to have conversations with the people that are experiencing it. So I want to say, I wouldn't call that an obstacle, but I want to just center that and say that I think that's always really important. And data and opportunities to kind of track things help uncover opportunities to do better and make sure that we're designing things differently. We're blowing up the way we used to do things and we're doing it better, so we're including everybody. other things that are difficult is even just kind of figuring out, we are data rich. I mean, if you look at Raleigh, this goes back to equity as well. We have a lot of resources and opportunities. We have a lot of data. It's a little overwhelming. We have some really awesome people on our teams that have been able to uncover some really cool stuff. I'll just say with our urban heat mapping, it's almost like one of those, if you build it, they will come. We didn't know exactly what we were going to do when we started, and then all of a sudden we have all these great partners that say, ooh, I can overlay this with my stormwater data, and we can actually prioritize where we're working and look at heat and flooding together and change the way that we're building infrastructure. Millions of dollars are getting rerouted to make sure that we're meeting people and we're doing it where we need to first. And I guess just another thing, so I'll give one other example. So we also, I think an opportunity that can be a challenge is we're really strong here in the Triangle. We don't do anything alone. And again, this isn't all my work. I'm just speaking about it, but this is really the work of the whole community. This is the work of a lot of really important, awesome, really smart people in the departments and in the community. So we have a couple really strong partnerships throughout the Triangle. We have a Solarize the Triangle program that was really successful. Another example, broke national records because so many people, you guys here, I keep pointing back to you, were so excited, signed up for getting solar. And so I think that was hard to put together, but we've got it done now. And folks like Deb are organizing us, and we need the Debs of the world to organize us, because once we figure out, like, we're big and slow. I'll just say, I think our biggest obstacle is we're government. Duke Energy is big and slow. We're big and slow, right? And so how do we get around that? And I think we need to work with folks that are more nimble. We've got smart people, we've got passionate people, but we also have a lot of rules for a good reason, but they get in the way sometimes. And so how do we unpack all that? How do we take advantage of all this money up at the federal level, trickling down to the state, to the local governments? That's such an amazing opportunity, so much red tape, but we can do it, right? So we need to organize. And so I'll say, I think we've established some really good starts where we know what our high impact areas are. We know what we want to do. We don't know exactly how we want to do it, but we've got some partnerships that we've started. We've figured out, I like to call it like working around like your water, right? How do you go up, over, around, and through to get to where you want to go when you think maybe you were just going to walk there and then never works out that way. So I hope I didn't wander too much, but I would just say I think the obstacles include just the red tape, being big and slow, but working around that by creating those connected partnerships, using that data to really look at who and how you prioritize what we're doing in different ways than what we've done in the past.
Good. Deb, Nicole, dealer's choice.
Sure. Well, thank you for that call out. And I just am so thrilled to be in a region that is doing so much innovative thinking, and it's just amazing and overwhelming and wonderful. And I've got all these notes and I'm circling some things. So I want to +1 on the equity and community engagement in general. One of the challenges is dispelling myths, right? So, and there are a lot of challenges because sometimes there are exemplars that might support those myths, right? Some of that is around security, data sharing, and those kinds of things, and helping community members feel heard, feel ownership, and feel engaged on an ongoing basis. I talked a little bit about adaptive management. I see that this has transformed recently, but having an adaptive management framework rather than a planning implementation, if it doesn't get implemented, it sits on the shelf kind of notion. So really having this active adaptive management where you are learning as you go in a deliberate iterative cycle so that you are always improving. Another thing is, I think Megan can speak to this best, but when you're looking at regional collaboration, your governance and timelines don't often align, and they don't even align sometimes within each municipality, right? I hear this from municipalities all the time. I can't get my facilities people, my fleet people, and these people. Everybody needs to coordinate internally, let alone between municipalities, so that can be challenging. I talked a little bit about boundaries. I think boundaries I could have a whole philosophical conversation around this, because I mean, you look at the practical ones, right? I live in Chapel Hill. There are people who live in our town but can't vote for this and then pay city taxes, not county taxes, and some don't pay city taxes. And it's good sometimes, not good sometimes, and everybody needs to be able to come together and understand that they have a role to play, especially when you get into some of these rural areas that we were referring to as part of the broader triangle. And I think, when I think about this, the last thing I'll say is, there are silos. And I have this drawing that I said, a lot of information goes this way, but we need it to go this way and this way, right? We need this to be a 3D diagram of communication, and that especially comes up when Megan referred to the money. I feel like sometimes with the IIJA, the bipartisan infrastructure law, and the other funding coming through that can really affect this type of work, it feels like you're kind of in a money machine, and every time you go to grab it, it makes a new swirl, and we really need we need a coordinated effort, and somebody's probably got to turn off that air so we can get things settled and be a little more strategic. But it's really hard because we're in a land of FOMO right now. We are so afraid of missing these things that we kind of miss the opportunity to be strategic. And we're trying, right? And there are already amazing collaborations across the region, across the state, and beyond. But we need to really focus on doing this in a deliberate way in order to be able to see those long-term pieces come together in a way that benefits all of our communities.
That is the perfect visual for the federal dollars. In a tube, air blowing, money all around. Can't get it. Can't find it.
The land of FOMO, too.
And the
I like
land
that.
of, oh my God. And being big and slow, all of those things. Nicole, any thoughts to share?
I'll just tag on a couple of things with what Deb said with dispelling myths. I think that is a huge one that we run into often because people think big data and they're watching and really it's not about surveillance. It's about safety and enabling a better experience for everybody. And a lot of this is we're talking about anonymous data that's just being able to be aggregated so that we can all make better decisions. So the huge emphasis there on just having a transparent conversation with the community around what the goal is and how it benefits the constituents, I think is huge. The great thing about what I do in cellular data is it's everywhere. It's already there. So really the obstacle that we see most often is who's going to pay for the hardware to actually harness the power that you already have there and have access to. So I know we have a lot of conversations with auto OEMs, and they're kind of like, is Verizon going to pay for this? Are we paying for this? Is the city paying for this? Who's paying for it? So, I think that more conversation needs to be had there around, what value does it bring to the community, and where does it make the most sense for the bill to go to?
There is nothing that will stop a collaborative conversation more than who's paying for it. The whole conversation just goes silent. So yeah, it's funny. As Duke, I feel like both the city and Verizon, I'm like a weird combination of both entities. I'm going to take liberty and go to our last question because we touched on it a couple times. How do we address equity? I think let's go there, and I'll open it up to whoever wants to speak to it.
I'll just quickly say that, from a cellular and from a connectivity perspective, we don't see demographics. We don't care where it's going. We just care where are there people. Where do we need to connect people? We don't know who those people are, but we need to connect. We need to get them connected. But as it comes to something like EV and enabling. Enabling the advent of EV and how that's exploding, I think that we do have a long way to go to make sure that we are getting EV charging equipment to more underserved areas of our community, because that's a challenge. And so I think Duke's doing a lot of great work there, so I want to commend you for that. And we just need to keep the conversation going to see where can we all play our part to ensure that we're equitably deploying those assets.
And I have to give Casey Gridley a lot of credit. She's my puppet master, and she's on my team. And Casey reminds me we have infrastructure. I've got 2.5 million lights everywhere. Is there a play there? Can we utilize our infrastructure to be broader and to help more of our communities? So thank you, Nicole, for the small shout out. I appreciate it. Deb, Megan?
I feel like Megan has to finish this one, so I'll go next.
I agree.
So I was going to say, this is not easy work, and I think it's really important. We've talked a little bit about multifamily units and how to get them resources. I will give a shout out to the pole vault program, and that gives me the opportunity to say that one of the things when I came into this role a couple of years ago is there was a lot more conversation about equity, and I really believe that needs to be those accomplishments, even if small for now, because it does take a lot of work, need to be celebrated. And I'll do a shameless plug. We have our Clean Tech Innovation Awards, and for the last couple of years, we've been doing an Equity and Clean Tech Award. And what's interesting there is it's not just about the results, it's also about the process. So one of the pieces, and I deliberately wrote this in as a stakeholder engagement person, this is part of my background, right, is like you have to design the process with intention to be inclusive, engaging, and it has to be enduring in that way. And, it's interesting to me, I did my doctoral work in the rural areas of the Okavango Delta of Botswana, and the parallels, like who is included, who is at the table, who is called in, who is called out, and who is opening the door to that table, right? And that's not everyone in the room. That is a seat at the table and someone being asked in a real way. And sometimes that works well through community representatives and nonprofits and people serving those communities. Sometimes you have to do something different, and it is hard, absolutely critical work. So I would say that there are a lot of people who are expert in that. There are a lot of people who are doing that work very deliberately. And to me, I think that we have to recognize that it's hard and we're making steps, but we got to keep going, and it cannot be a checkbox.
Mm-hmm. Megan, take us home.
Well, I'll just say, I think building on what both of them have said, you said it's a process, and I'll just say, and that process is never done, to your point. Like, you're just iterating, and there's always more you can do. I'll give a couple examples just because I feel like for me, that's always the easiest way to kind of unpack what this might look like. So I guess when we're thinking about something like transportation electrification, I'll tell a story in a second about another thing that's happening. We don't want that to turn out in like 10 years to be that new equity story, right? You hear, and I think it's common, kind of something that human nature kind of just does, where you're like, oh, well, some people can't afford that, so we're just going to focus on who wants it now. That's exactly how we create equity issues, right? So if we're thinking about something like transportation electrification, we need to focus on, just like you were saying, the folks that don't have access to EVs right now, because you build a building, that building's there, we hope, at least for 50 years. If you don't put that conduit in, that conduit's going to cost 6 to 8 times more later on. So, thinking ahead to kind of say, we need to make sure the folks that aren't asking for it right now are included here, because that's clean energy, and they're not going to have access. If they finally get a vehicle, which those vehicles are coming down in price, there's a lot less maintenance. If you do it right, it saves you a lot of money, right? So we want to make sure that folks that don't have access and are getting left out of these conversations are included. And so, like, how do you think about that now, right? So by no means are we perfect, but those are things that we're challenging ourselves with to say, okay, like I mentioned earlier, what does that mean? So in some things we're using to try to think about data and actually worked we got an award actually with RTCC with working on this, with mapping for this. So what are our criteria? What's important to us when we're thinking about where are the hot spots where EV infrastructure needs to go over time? Making sure that criteria includes things like small to minority businesses. So folks might show up and charge there for 15 minutes and stay, and there's more foot traffic. Now, is that tried and tested? We're still working that out, right? It's a new field. I'm learning all sorts of things about gas stations, mom and pop shops, how they make their money, they turn over. So there's lots to figure out there. Also, multifamily, we know that, right? More and more people are renting, more and more people are getting pushed out of Raleigh. If you're in multifamily, you need to have charging there. So let's make sure we're catching the new ones, and then we're looking at programs to create incentives for the existing multifamily units to install charging too. And then I'll just end with saying, so we're also working on a program. I mentioned heat and flooding are two of the biggest climate impacts in Raleigh. So we're really excited about a grant that we just got with NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association. It always tongue ties me. Really exciting opportunity. Again, want to give credit to the community. First city in the 18 years of the program to give a city this grant, and it's all about climate education and resilience in the community. We already have a watershed learning network. We work with Partners for Environmental Justice in our stormwater department on this program. We're going to expand that to heat, and we're going to talk about what's happening in your community. Look at the data, understand how government works, talk to the people in power, do projects in your neighborhood, make something happen. So when we have this data, we have these digital twins, we've got the urban heat mapping data, we're talking about priority areas that we want to put infrastructure in, we're talking about what the community can do. We have a Ready Raleigh emergency preparedness guide that talks about anything from a pandemic to a hurricane, to a heat wave. We know that communities that are more connected, that are having conversations about what do I do in my house, what do I do in my neighborhood, who might down the street need a little bit of extra help if something happens, those communities do better. And so having those conversations, but then I guess taking the step back to say, how did we get here? There were decisions that were made by government to put Black people in low-lying areas of the city. We discharged wastewater in those areas. Those areas are flooding. Those areas have a lot of other disparities. Those areas don't have as many trees. Those are the realities that we've created, not only government, but government included, other things that we're overlooking. And so let's not keep making those mistakes, and then let's unpack and fix some of the stuff that we've done and be honest and transparent about it as we're doing that. So again, I'm not saying we have all the answers and we're doing this all right, but we're trying to kind of figure out how to use data, how to have conversations, and to what Deb was saying, it's, don't just stop at the data and say, ooh, I know what to do now. Like, you really have to go into those communities and have those conversations, because they're going to know what they need. And sometimes they don't want to have that conversation, and that's okay, and that's understandable, because why would you have trust? So I think there's just so much there. Back to the obstacle, it's hard work. But I think trying to have those conversations and unpacking things and being honest about what you're seeing and starting there is a good place to start.
Excellent. I am going to forego our last question to give our audience an opportunity to ask us questions. We only have 5 minutes left. And again, there's a lot of passion up here. So please take advantage of the depth of knowledge and interest we have in this topic around transportation. Any questions from the audience? Oh, don't be shy. Yes.
Hi, how's it going? Thank you guys so much for spending your time with us today. My question is, particularly for Megan, you talked about a lot of the initiatives going on right now that are underway, and they're so exciting. What are some things that you're looking to do in the future that you're potentially looking for help for with vendors or other businesses in the community?
Yeah, no, thank you. So great question. If anybody couldn't hear, she said, what are we looking to do in the future with vendors and others in the community? So one thing that we've been talking a lot about, and Heather and I, we've been up late nights burning the midnight oil on this, is again, you should feel proud being in Raleigh in the Triangle area. We're really on the map. There's a lot of things happening. We are trying to tackle things. So one big opportunity is we're a finalist for a Bloomberg grant, and the thing with that is the Bloomberg grant aside, we're already trying to talk about this stuff, right? And so that's why we're a finalist for this kind of thing. Looking at things like closing the racial wealth gap and combating climate change at the same time, you know, no big deal, 2 small things, let's figure that out. So, yeah, there's a big challenge right there. You tell me what that means. You tell me what you think you can do. You tell me what data you have out there. There's really cool data. Heather and I were just in Atlanta about this, and the Black Wealth Equity Index is a new data set that's out there that we started to look into. We were looking at all these data sets, looking at disparity information, you know, things that we're not, how do you think about like who has insurance and where do people have insurance and who are those people that don't have insurance and why don't they have insurance? I mean, there's all these things to unpack. Is it workforce development? Is it economic development drivers? So I would say there's a big challenge that I'm not going to give you the answers for because we're all going to struggle with it. But I think closing the racial wealth gap and climate change do go together, and the more and more and more you talk about it, the more that's there. One other thing is we're really excited talking about something like a climate change corridor. So Raleigh, again, has a lot going on. We have a really good history of all this really great partnership throughout the Triangle, lots of urban spaces all around here. Charlotte has all this banking industry, tons of public-private partnerships. They've done all these innovative projects too. We've got Greensboro right in the middle. They just got $8 billion more for an EV battery investment happening there. All these urban corridors and spaces, tons of stuff happening, lots of attention being paid, lots of money out there. What does a climate change corridor look like? How do we do public-private partnerships? Who wants to be a part of that? And what are we actually doing with that? So how do we get the attention to get the money, to get the resources to do something? But who are we bringing that back to? So those are 2 just big things I'll put out there that may be of interest for people to talk about.
We have time for just one more question. Yes, sir.
My name is Tom. Thank you, first of all, for being the father of 4 daughters. It's really great to see you with the panel there. I appreciate all 3 of you talking about the vehicles and the demand for vehicles and the number of vehicles on the road. What is being done to sort of reduce the number of vehicles on the road? My personal slant, you know, I live in Mooresville, but I go to Chapel Hill once or twice a week to play up in Frisbee. It's about 14 miles one way. On an EV bike, I could do that in an hour or less, but not in these roads. These roads take my own life. I live like 600 miles from my office, but I'm not biking it because I've got cars go 60 miles an hour. They still need a shoulder, that kind of thing. So it'd be nice to see these non-vehicle paths, bike paths, little bike paths, and so forth. What's been done there in trying to connect that to make it easier to make it more walkable, more bikeable?
You've got 30 seconds for that response.
Great question. And not sure if you heard this earlier, but I'll just really quickly say, so yes, we want people out of their cars. That is the first number 1 big thing. Reality is we know people are going to be in their cars and it's not going to change overnight either way, right? So let's make those clean cars when we can. But we have hundreds of miles of greenways in Raleigh, and we keep talking about, so why did we get those greenways? We created those greenways because those were, we bought those out because we didn't want more people to live in the flood zone. We didn't want people to flood. So those flood. So we're in this interesting place now where we want to make those corridors for people to commute to work, but they also flood, and that's what they're supposed to do. And then they're full of mud, and then people are like, I want to use it today. But, you know, that's a lot of, so there's a lot there that we got to figure out, but there's also hundreds of miles of trails that we're trying to connect more to work on. I mentioned earlier really quickly that we have an e-bike subsidy pilot program that we're pushing out because we want to get folks access to other transportation options where it creates more mobility and accessibility for people. We're doing codes and ordinances that actually try to require, these always aren't popular, but looking at things like not having drive-throughs in some parts of town that are supposed to be really walkable, because if you're in a wheelchair or you're walking or you're trying to get around and you got to go out in the street to get around all these cars and there's all that smog, there's tons of places where you can still have a drive-through. We're not gonna, but we're looking at walkable areas. How do you create walkable spaces where people can get around without getting in their car? How do you have those connections? Another one that we're working on is, there's a grocery store right here, there's a big neighborhood right here, but you gotta go like this to get there. How do we make sure that when that's a possibility, we make that connection so you could walk or bike over to the store when you can? So those are kind of things we're trying to catch. We are such a fast-growing city, so many opportunities, and then that's just also a big challenge because we're growing so fast. If there was one thing I guess I should have said earlier with development is it is a big obstacle, but it's also a big opportunity. So just trying to catch that before it gets too far. We're trying to fix it later.
Well, in fairness, that was a big question. There's an entire panel on that question that we can create. Mm-hmm. It is. But we're not going to end on life and death. We're going to end on happiness and dreaming bigger. So please join me in thanking our panel for their time. And Heather, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Absolutely. So thank you, Duke Energy, for helping to sponsor this. And again, another round of applause for our wonderful panelists. All right, so in Raleigh, we always love to promote our small businesses. So we have gifts from Videri Chocolate. If you have not been there, they are an amazing chocolatiers that are in walking distance from here. But a couple of other announcements. For me, the big takeaways are, what I really loved about this panel is the intersectionality of it, right? We're not just talking about sustainability. We're talking about the connections of equity. We're talking about the connections of getting people to participate in this. So these are really big, complex challenges, but this is the triangle, and we are up for this, right? So what I also love about the panel is all of the things going on, but again, we're just getting started. So if you can imagine what we can really accomplish when all of us are coming, come join us, come collaborate, what we can do next with that. Two kind of logistical things. So again, the survey, we want to hear from you. We want to better understand what is top of mind for you. So don't forget, there's two simple questions. I just filled mine out as well. And then lunch. So one of the questions here was, where's the money? Well, during lunch, there is going to be a speaker who's going to talk about some of these federal grants. So box lunches are out. And then we have the speaker that is going to tell us a little bit about where's the money. So thank you, everybody.